Ready? Good evening. Today, I would like to call to order the Oregon City Council regular meeting for January 27th of 2025. The time is 7:08. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Ross, would you please take a roll call of council members for present?
Mrs. Ackerman. Here. Mr. Drake.
Here.
Mr. Horniak.
Here.
Mrs. Paula. Here. Mr. Reeves.
Here.
Mr. Salander.
Here.
Mr. Wallenczak.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Also present at tonight's meeting is Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joe Major, Clerk of Council Cassie Rawson, Law Director Melissa Papora, Public Service Director Paul Roman, Police Chief Brandon Began, Assistant Police Chief Ryan Spangler, Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, Assistant Fire Chief Mark Mullins, and our Finance Director Nick Roman. Next order of business is to approve the minutes from the January 13th, 2025 regular council meeting. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Horniak.
I move to approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2025 regular council meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Does anyone have any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted as presented. First item on the agenda is persons and delegations. We are going to go with the OEDF members. And our first person we're going to call up is Mr. Scott Hayes. Mr. Hayes, would you please come to the lectern and give your name and address?
Yep, Scott Hayes, Hayes, 1819 Woodville Road, Oregon. I am here at the request of several people because I heard there has been concern about the way Oregon Economic Development Foundation operates. I've been affiliated with the organization since I think 2007. At that time I was working for Mr. Bose back here. I now work for PBF Energy, which owns the old Sun Oil Refinery. Most people know it as PBF Energy. I've had a lot of different roles, but mainly my role on the foundation has been to be available for potential investors that want to learn what it's like to do business in the city of Oregon. That's kind of been my role. They want to hear about what the business climate is like. They want to hear about the regulatory architecture. They want to hear about the workforce, all things I'm happy to talk about. I've done a little bit of marketing and business retention visits and that kind of thing has been what I've done. I've not ever been involved in property acquisitions or anything like that. There's a pretty tight circle that, for good reason, because of confidentiality. And so I just wanted to tell you that, from where I've sat, I've been proud of the work that we've done. We've done a lot of good things. It has worked pretty well. One of the issues that we've had is holding on to executive directors. There's been too much turnover. We would like to hold on to an executive director for a long time because there's a learning curve that happens. And what we've learned is everybody had their own methodology of inputting things into QuickBooks, which is, if you have ever worked in it, it can be a little cantankerous if people are putting stuff in the wrong way. So we had a little bit of a trouble getting the financial records that were requested of us as quickly as we should have or would have liked to have gotten them. I will also say the definition of financial report or financial records has changed over the years from what I've seen. And what I look at generally is just the operational fund. When we have our executive board meetings, we talk about, what are we spending money on? It's typically just the operations that we see. We're not involved in the land acquisition or those accounts. So we see as a board, we pay for the executive salary, we pay for an office, we pay for services, those types of things. So I think the definition of financial report is important to agree on. And now that we've engaged a CPA to help us and know exactly what's expected, I think that will go a long way. I would like to advocate that this group is someone that does, we have businesses in several states, properties in others. I can tell you, as someone that does business around the country, you definitely want to maintain a united front. You don't want to, we have a term called, you don't want to spook the investors. You want to make sure. But I will tell you, I'm glad that people care enough to ask questions. That tells me that everyone wants the same thing. And I really believe that. We want a thriving Oregon. We want one that is flourishing. We want one that is promoting progress. That's always been a tagline I've liked to use. And so I think we're all here for the right reason. I know there's a lot of people that like to talk, but I'll say any clog in the drain, my grandma used to say, will divert the water elsewhere. And I know we've got a really good project. I don't even know that you guys know more about it than I do. I know it's a good project. I know it's a job producer and even better tax producer if we are able to get it. I know that it is a data center, and I know that it's we're talking not millions but billions of dollars worth of investment. So my message to the council and all the partners here is let's be united and go get it would be my thoughts. But I appreciate being heard.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Up next, we'll have Craig Elbers. Please name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Craig Albers, 2600 Navarre, Oregon, Ohio. I'm the president of Mercy Health St. Charles. I'm also the vice president of the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. Thank all of you for having us here this evening. As a proud member and investor in the Oregon Economic Development Foundation, I feel the impact of the Oregon Economic Development Foundation is driving economic growth and development of the city of Oregon that has been substantial over the years since its creation. The foundation helps attract, recruit, and retain businesses to the community by creating a business-friendly community that new businesses can become a part of and thrive in. At the same time, we can attract new businesses to the community. We assist them with networking and building a sense of community and support. The Oregon Economic Development Foundation also allows them to assess their business needs prior to making a final determination on building and locating their business in Oregon. So I know personally, as a large operator of a business in Oregon, these new businesses sometimes will reach out, like Scott was saying, and they want to know, what is the climate of a business in Oregon? They ask questions about the workforce availability and capability, workforce supply, the community support, community services, in my experience in working with the city government. They also ask numerous questions about the community in which their employees and their families may end up living in and their businesses grow in. I'm not alone as a business leader in the OEDF, as many of us have these experiences with businesses contacting us to get a feel of what it's like to run a business in Oregon. Without the OEDF, this business alignment and support of the community may be fractured and also piecemeal and not have the same impact as it does today. I think it's important that the City Council also understands the makeup of the business leaders and the business members of this organization. Their number one goal is to improve Oregon and make it better for its citizens. The business leaders are all volunteers. They get paid nothing for their time. They do this, they support and sponsor many initiatives that help Oregon become a better place to live and improve the lives of its citizens. I just can speak of some examples that I know personally from my experiencing. Several of our businesses worked with Habitat for Humanity in building a home with a single mother, so her and her children can live here in your community where she wanted to live. We also assist the school system. One of our businesses helps with book machines for the kids. We also worked with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and brought your zip codes into that network to give your kids books prior to the age of 5 so that they're ready for school and preschool so they have better opportunities at early literacy. We also help with food banks, farmers markets, school supplies for your kids as well as your teachers, defraying their costs, stop the bleed kits. We also help in recreational facilities and activities, dog parks, pickleball courts, other things like that that make this community better. These are just a small number of the work that many of these members do. So when members of the council question the integrity of these members, they need to look at the bigger picture of the value that the business leaders in their organizations and the value they bring to your community. I have every confidence in OEDF and its business leader members to continue to support the community and make Oregon a better place for its citizens and businesses to be a part of. I hope after you hear a lot of the testimony, as well as the educational components that some of our members will share with you, that you too will see the value of the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. Next is Mr. Dean Monsky. Name and address, please, for the record.
Sure, thank you, President Reeves. Dean Monsky, 2 Maritime Plaza, Toledo, Ohio. Scott's always losing his phone.
Just
want
to get into a little of your time.
Thank you. President Reeves, Mayor Safari, and members of council. My name is Dean Monsky. I'm the president and CEO of the Regional Growth Partnership, otherwise known as RGP. We're the privately funded regional economic development, and we cover 17 counties here in Northwest Ohio. We're also the Jobs Ohio network partner for Jobs Ohio, which is the private sector statewide organization. And in full transparency, I was the director of the OEDF back from 2000 to 2006 when I left to become the vice president of business development for the Regional Growth Partnership and have been leading the organization since 2011. So the main purpose for me being here today is to really communicate the importance of having a local economic development organization that can indeed work with confidential information. This is not my opinion, but this is the opinion of every single major site location consultant in the country. Consultants and the companies that those consultants represent have various reasons for wanting their plans to be confidential until they're ready for public disclosure, which certainly happens at the right time. Most of those revolve around those companies not wanting to give valuable information to their competitors that could put them at a disadvantaged position. The other thing I would say that's really important here in this conversation is competition is absolutely fierce among almost every single community in the country when it comes to vying for these new jobs and this new investment. If you do not have an appropriate structure within your community to work with these consultants, it's going to be very difficult landing the kind of projects that can be transformational to your city. And while RGP does a wonderful job of attracting these opportunities to the region, we must have strong local partners in order to land them. RGP is a relatively small group of professionals. We cannot possibly know everything in every community in those 17 counties, and therefore we need the help and the partnerships of the kind we've enjoyed with OEDF over these many years. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Monsky. Next, Mr. Gary Thompson. Mr. Thompson, if you would, your name and address for the record.
Thank you, President Reeves. My name is Gary Thompson. My address is 2 Maritime Plaza, Toledo, Ohio, 43604. Council, Mayor, appreciate the time you've given to the Oregon Economic Development tonight. I stand before you as a person that has a vested interest in the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. I am, as they say, a related party. Not only am I a past director, but I still work in the economic development field at the RGP and have the pleasure of working with the City of Oregon administration and the foundation on a regular basis. Full disclosure, Dean just mentioned, he's my boss. He was a past director. I'm a past director. My son has also been a director of OEDF. I'm also a resident of Oregon, living in plain view of wind turbines, high school drivers, coffee shops, refineries, power plants, and my neighbors. The recent besmirching of the foundation has me a little perplexed. And since I care about the organization professionally and personally, I thought I would inform this body of the successes of the foundation. Many of these you may not even know about because oftentimes you see the end product. You don't see all the work that goes in behind the scenes. So let's recount some foundation successes. The creation of Pearson Park North. OEDF created the strategy of not rezoning that property to residential and did the dirty work of informing residential developers of this city policy by hosting meetings between city officials and the Metro Parks, leading to the ultimate land purchase by the Metro Parks. Fundraising for improvements to Pearson North, mainly the Jolin Cabin. It was OEDF who kickstarted the Pearson fundraising for the Jolin Cabin improvements by soliciting our members to contribute to the cause. One member contributed $50,000 in cash, new playground equipment to the old Pearson Park, and a solar-powered golf cart. This donation jumpstart the fundraising campaign and allowed the project to happen. The attraction of Spartan Development to Oregon Cedar Point Industrial Park. It was OEDF that introduced Ed Harmon to Doug Roberts, and as they say, the rest is history, because that introduction resulted in 8 new industrial buildings built in Oregon with approximately 1,200 jobs associated with those businesses, providing opportunity and tax revenue for the city. Let's talk about the site work for Oregon Clean Energy. The city, and including this mayor, did a lot of work to bring Oregon Clean Energy to fruition. But about 4 years before the city's involvement, a bald guy in a Hawaiian shirt and sandals, and I kid you not, his name was Jeff, those of you that know him, showed up at the OED office and seriously was looking for a site. Luckily, the OEDF took him treated him professionally and helped him find that site in Oregon. Then they assisted a gentleman named Bill Martin with natural gas utilities. This project provides Oregon schools with $1 million per year and is credited with keeping the schools off the ballot for 10 years. Let's talk about the pipeline that feeds that power plant. When the pipeline for Oregon Clean Energy was being stopped by 3 institutional landowners, who I will not name, over an easement pricing, it was OEDF who met with those landowners and enlightened them to the gravity of the situation. After those meetings, the final 3 easements were granted to the generation pipeline, thus feeding the power plant, thus providing the schools with $1 million per year. Let's talk about a little public hearing for BP. Due to an illness to a key refinery employee, it was OEDF that managed the refinery's response to an Ohio EPA public hearing by rallying the business community, the labor community, and elected officials to come and support the refinery's permit renewal. That OEDF action helped BP Husky have the confidence in the community that they decided to invest $2 billion over 10 years to metal up the refinery so it could process sweet or sour crude. This project was larger than the new Jeep plant and generally went unnoticed in the press. The importance of this project is that if you ask oil and gas industry experts, they believe that eventually one of Ohio's 5 refineries will close. This investment by BP Husky provided a competitive advantage to the refinery, improving its odds of staying operational, and this operational feature helped attract Synovus to purchase the facility and keep it operational. OEDF also led the work with Jobs Ohio to secure the first ever grant for the refinery, BP Husky, allowing them to move Cedar Point Road, making the facility safer. The movement of this road also allowed the company to construct a large maintenance facility and a new electric substation. These investments created jobs, opportunity, and tax revenue for the city. OEDF also was able to deem the city's time involved in the project as their match, thus saving the city any cash outlay regarding to the project. Site work for Norfolk Southern's railroad car expansion for Toledo Refining. OEDF, through its relationship through NS, helped Norfolk Southern find additional rail yard space in Oregon to better serve Toledo Refining supply needs. This effort has made Toledo Refining more competitive as well, lowering the risk that it will one day close. How about the attraction of the National Buffalo Wild Wings franchise? It was OEDF that found the Defiance-based franchise owner of BW3s and convinced him to pick Oregon as a new location instead of many other regional communities. The attraction of Eden Park Residential Development. It was OEDF and its members that held a golf outing at Eagles Landing, inviting not only regional site consultants to attend, but also area home realtors and builders. It was this event and the presentations afterwards, along with assistance from our then OEDF presidents, Tracy Sala, that brought the developer to Oregon. You know their work as Eden Place off Wynn Road. The attraction of the Buffalo Rock Brewery to Oregon. Oddly enough, it was OEDF's connection to Waterville and an aggressive director that convinced the Buffalo Rock owner to come to Oregon and buy an old fire station and create Oregon's newest gathering place. Attraction and site work for Alpont Chemicals processing facility. It was OEDF that literally went knocking on residential doors to find a site in the industrial park that would work for Alpont's plant. Again, creating jobs and tax revenue for the citizens and city of Oregon. Retention of Reeder Automotive, positioning them to become Autoneum. It was OEDF that mustered all the resources necessary from the state and the county to retain Reeder Automotive and help them expand. The success of this facility is why Autoneum continues to operate in Oregon instead of moving the operation to Michigan. The attraction of Adler Pelzler. It was OEDF working through the state process that Dean talked about with Jobs Ohio and all of its other partners, which landed the automotive supplier in Oregon. Vying for some of the state's largest projects. Lately, because of the success of OEDF, its strategic acquisition of land, its great reputation, and its relationship marketing, Oregon has been considered for some of the largest projects in Ohio's history. Some of these you may know about, and others you may not. Some you win and some you don't. But the track record of OEDF is what has put you in the position to compete for the latest project in Cedar Point Industrial Park. Administering teacher workforce for Oregon schools. Oregon schools wanted to improve their career technical education by embedding career tech teachers in businesses that use the skills they teach. This program helps teachers and curriculum stay current, giving Oregon students a competitive advantage over other students as they enter the workforce. Who did Oregon schools call to implement the plan? They called OEDF. Attracting over 100 new investors into OEDF, many from outside Oregon. Recent OEDF directors have added over 100 new investors to the organization, some small, some large. This additional investment secures the long-term financial success of the organization, but also creates new business ambassadors for Oregon throughout the region. Hosting a Gordie Howe Bridge Symposium. It was OEDF that took the lead and hosted a symposium for the business community on the impact of the Gordie Howe Bridge. The event, held at Maumee Bay State Park, was attended by over 200 business and political leaders in the region. The event provided great exposure in public relations for Oregon, allowing Oregon to highlight itself as a great community for business investment. The Oregon Dog Park. It was OEDF who was instrumental in financially supporting the beginning of that dog park. Essentially, without the foundation, the dog park would have been delayed a substantial length of time. And finally, there's a new gas station coming to Navarre Avenue. It was OEDF that took the call and worked with the company to help them understand the zoning process and the building code in Oregon and the community wishes. While you may think a new gas station isn't a big project, this particular gas station has a fresh food kitchen, which is a great feature for the neighboring hospital, with workers coming in and out all hours of the day and night. So in conclusion, these are just some of the past successes of the foundation. I would implore you, before you think you know everything the foundation does, or before you try to blow it up, ask yourself if you want more money going to Oregon school system. Do you want lower taxes in your community? Do you want exceptional city services like police that actually come when you call, trash that is picked up, reasonable water and sewer rates, and park and recreation opportunities? Do you want smarter teachers and students in Oregon schools? You want great parks and great park experiences? You want job opportunities for citizens of all educational backgrounds. You want over 150 business ambassadors for the city of Oregon spreading the praises of this city throughout the region. Do you want to be the go-to community for Jobs Ohio, the RGP, the Port Authority, site consultants, and companies when they know they have a large, complex, and complicated project? Do you want to maintain the refinery's presence, their tax revenue, their technology, and their products? Do you want to have private businesses subsidize public infrastructure like roads, water, and sewers? Do you want to see new homes, townhouses, and condominiums being built in Oregon? Do you want more commercial enterprises like shops and restaurants to come to Oregon? Do you want doctors and nurses with access to overnight fresh food? And finally, do you want happier dogs in your community? These are all the things the foundation does, among many others, every day. The foundation does it professionally and with the support of the city and the business community. There are approximately 3,450 counties in America, all vying for jobs and investment. Many vying for the jobs and investment that are here in your community. The folks from South Carolina, Texas make regular trips to Ohio trying to recruit your businesses. Economic development is highly competitive enterprise. This foundation gives you a strong advantage over many other communities trying to win jobs and investment. So I humbly ask that you be mindful of your public comments about not only the foundation, but about economic development in general, because your public words have repercussions far beyond that you know. As a past OEDF director, I want to thank city councils. I want to thank the city administration. I want to thank the mayors who have supported the foundation in the past for more than 30 years. As an employee of the RGP, I look forward to a long and prosperous relationship with the foundation and helping the foundation achieve the economic goals of the city of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Up next, Ms. Stephanie Coleman. If you would, name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Coolman, address 4427 Talmadge Road, Toledo, Ohio. I'm actually here in a variety of capacities. The first one, I am the president of the NAI Harmon Group. Here tonight representing Ed Harmon. He wishes he could be here, but he's in Naples, so he wouldn't want to be here. As Gary referred to, the Harmons have invested over $50 million in Oregon. We have 8 buildings here that are full, thanks in all part to Oregon Economic Development that helped us get those buildings kicked off 20 years ago. Today, those buildings are full. As Gary said, we employ over 1,200 employees, and every single one of those buildings is now fully on the tax rolls and contributing to those taxes. So we could not have done those buildings without it. We have 2 other programs in the pipeline right now that we're thinking about doing here. My second capacity here is I am the wife of Doug Howard, who's a home builder here in Oregon. And, we benefit greatly from the industry that is here and how it reduces the property taxes here. One only needs to look at Perrysburg, Ohio, to know that when you don't plan appropriately for industry and you rely on residential property taxes to support your community, that just doesn't do it. And so you find yourself in a world of hurt years later. So we have been very successful in Eden Park a lot because people want to move here. Doug just closed on a house today, somebody that came from Springfield. So that is working. The one thing I haven't heard here tonight, and I will tell you I'm fortunate enough to get to develop with the Harmon Group in 15 different states. And in every one of those states, it's a team. Development is a team. And it starts with a strong economic development group. It starts with groups like the RGP or the local state jurisdiction. It is the county. But at the end of the day, it's also the city. And every place that we get to develop, where we're most successful is when economic development and the city are cohesive and they work together to achieve the same goals. So you all are part of a team of every project that we bring here. It usually starts at the economic development level. It gets going with the state entities, and then it finishes with city council. So I would ask you to consider that we need all of you. You guys are a very big, important part of what we do, and we could not get a job finished without you. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the economic development and all of our state and local partners, and I just thank you.
Hang on just a minute, Mr. President.
Mr.
I would just say that one of the key pieces in our industrial park was a piece of property that the Harmon Group held. And Josh Bazin was there, so he was on vacation trying to get it. And I don't get nervous usually, but we needed that property. And Josh, finally I talked to Stephanie, in about 48 hours we had that piece of property. And so that was us working together. Melissa, Stephanie, and I in 48 hours had something that we desperately needed. So thank you again.
But we're a team. All of us are a team. We can't do it without economic development. We can't do it without you. I can't do it. I can't get a deal done without all of you. Got that one done. And we're here to support you with the data centers and whatever comes out forward. Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Ms. Dawn Christian. Name and address, please, for the record.
Dawn Kristen, 1600 Front Street, Toledo, Ohio, 05. Good evening, Mayor, President Reeves, members of council. It's nice to be in front of you again, and this isn't my first time. And as you all know, I'm here representing the interest of working men and women within Northwest Ohio. I'm here to support the important role that the Oregon Economic Development Foundation plays to bringing opportunity to Northwest Ohio, Oregon's residents, its community, and the workers that I represent. I represent the Northwest Ohio Building Trades and its 14 affiliated local trades unions, as well as its over 17,000 men and women that live and work within the Northwest Ohio region. While I'm not always on the same side, or maybe sometimes at odds with some of the other organizations here because of representing labor, I think our collective missions are often more the same than not, to bring opportunities to our region. For me and the people I represent, that opportunities means jobs. Because of the nature of a tradesman's work, they're always working themselves out of a job. Without development, there are no jobs, no opportunities, no contributions to your tax base or to your schools. The foundation serves the role of bringing opportunities to workers. The foundation has the unique ability to attract investment in your community while protecting their competitive advantage, granting them confidentiality, providing security for their sensitive information about their plans, their locations, and the details of any deal. The foundation can do this because although it is a partner with government, the foundation itself is not a governmental entity. Rather, it's a nonprofit, tax-exempt organization that plays the vital role of improving the quality of life and economic well-being of this community. As a nonprofit, tax-exempt corporation, the foundation files annual returns, which you can find online. It's governed and by its established bylaws that it must follow in order to ensure that its governance is following those rules. Its members are elected and appointed through their bylaw requirements. I implore the members of council and the members of this community to be open to the value that the Economic Development Foundation brings to your community. Oregon has experienced lost development opportunities. We don't want misinformation and or speculation to be the reason for the loss of another one. The city of Oregon, its residents, and the greater Northwest Ohio region will greatly benefit from development. I have said the same each opportunity I have to appear before you. Oregon has been a leader in our region for industrial development. As you know, you are in a prime location due to your transportation infrastructure and access, including rail, water, and air. More importantly, development will bring good paying temporary and permanent jobs for the 17,000 men and women of the trades, their spouses, their families, who all contribute again to your tax base, send their kids to school here, shop and support local businesses. Responsible development is the lifeblood of the men and women of the trades. On behalf of the Northwest Ohio Building Trades, on behalf of Sean Enright, who unfortunately was not able to be here this evening, I ask each of you to continue Oregon's trend of attracting modern development that brings great opportunities to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christian. Next is Hans Rosebrock. If you would, please, your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Hans Rosebrock. My address, personal address is 3348 River Road, Toledo. My business address is 1800 Indianwood Circle in Maumee.
Thank you.
I probably, besides Dean and Gary, I might be the longest tenured person that has worked with the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. I'm currently director of Power Energy Systems with Matic & Smith Engineers. Prior to that, I had a 28-year career with First Energy Toledo Edison doing economic development. And I remember the first director, Joe Palacki. Mayor, I remember working with Jim Haley. And I remember when we sold this.
Not our first director. What's his name was? jean shirts.
Oh, my God. And I should remember that because I worked with him at Edison.
So I go back before you do.
Very good. Yeah. And I will say at the time, and Dean, I don't know if Dean or Gary's tenure here, we did sell 200 acres of some of the property here for $1 to promote development in this community. So the Oregon Economic Development Foundation, I've read some of the articles in the newspaper. There is not a malfeasant bone in any director that's ever worked here, ever. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm sure everybody's made mistakes in their home finances. I'm sure you've done it in your business, and maybe here, even in Oregon. Those things happen. But this was not done nefariously at all. It was probably mistakes and a lack of oversight, which maybe we need to improve upon. Okay? But this group is important to this city. As Dean said, you got to have a strong public-private partnership working in economic development to make these deals happen. Because you know what? Your competitors have this set up. Look at Bowling Green, look at Fremont. They have their own city economic development groups. Okay? We certainly have counties and we have Dean's group, but at the city level, there are a lot of cities that have similar setups. And as Dean mentioned and Gary mentioned, you got to have that infrastructure in place, that social infrastructure in place to get these deals done. You got to have the context with the local government officials. You got to have contacts in the private sector to make these things happen. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the ODF that the city of Oregon continues to look favorably upon the organization and still provide it the financial resources it needs to operate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Before you leave, I was just going to comment on you talking about the integrity of the members.
Yeah.
And I tried to sell that, when the people go there, the networking that they do, if somebody would do something wrong, oh my gosh, the rest of them would kill that person and fry him for life. So, it's just not possible. I know that because I've gone to them for more years than I care to count, because that makes me old. Yeah, we go back a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Mr. Joshua Hughes. Name and address for the record, please.
Joshua Hughes, I'll give you my business address first, 1845 Collingwood Boulevard, Toledo, Ohio. And my personal address is 205 Avalon Lane over in Eden Park, one of Doug's houses that he built. So if it weren't so cold, I would have walked tonight. But I'm here on behalf of the Associated General Contractors of Northwest Ohio, wherein I'm the CEO. Also, I am the chairman of the Regional Growth Partnership. We are also the AGC, an investor in the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. I had the pleasure 12 years ago of serving with some of you and Mayor Safarian, and back when he had Mike Beasley sitting where Joel is. And we worked with the Oregon Economic Development Foundation back then. They're a vital partner in this community. It's an important role they serve. RGP can't do what RGP does without them. So yes, I don't want to belabor everything that everyone's already said. I like to move pretty quickly. So I was going to have a 37-point detailed list for you, but I know Terry wants to get moving here. So I'll speak as, in my business capacity as an investor in Oregon Economic Development Foundation, in the RGP, also in my personal capacity, finally, as a citizen. I like nice stuff. I like living here. I like having unlimited trash pickup and reasonable water and sewer rates. And development is imperative to maintain that. And I urge you to please continue working with the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. That's our list of OEDF members that that wanted to speak today. Thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Ms. Ackerman.
we were told that representatives were here to answer questions. My first question is, where is the president of the OEDF this evening?
Please name and address for the
Sure.
record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Gregory. I'm in Elmore, Ohio, 19190 West Orchard Drive, Elmore, but I'm currently the interim at Economic Development for Oregon. He's working at his day job, but he's got some events he had to take care of this evening associated with his day job. He's a volunteer, so we had to let him off the hook today.
Thank you. I was only asking because it's his name on the bottom of the 990s. State the name, address, and telephone number of the person who possesses the organization's books and records. So I was just hoping to ask him directly some things, but thank you for coming. Oh, I can ask you tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Salander, per our conversation on Friday, you and I speaking, you said there was some citizen that wanted to speak tonight. Are they present?
They had reached out just to ask if there was opening for public comment or public question, I guess should say. So that, I don't know if they were going to speak tonight or not, but they were just asking if that was open for them. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. Name and address, please.
Omar Smady, 2949 Camelot Drive. Well, I just came to say I really appreciate all the members from the Oregon Foundation coming out, expressing what they represent. It's a pleasure to meet all these investors. I really appreciate it as a resident of Oregon for almost 40 years now. And so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. If there is nothing further for council, Mr. Horniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, council members, I had Ms. Rawson copy and share with everybody, which covers the foundation's meeting schedule planned as of right now through the rest of the year. And obviously that may change or update or add to, but wanted to make sure everybody had that. Thought it was pretty topical to share. Just was made available within the last week. I personally, and as a member of council, would like to thank all those that work with the OEDF. Just to remind everybody, it is a volunteer organization except for one individual. There's one paid employee. Everybody else is a volunteer. Everybody else is there giving of their time, trying to balance their day job, their volunteerism, and a commitment to our community. And I want to thank all of you for that because I do understand the commitment that that takes. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Council,
Mr. President.
Mr. Walnzak.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to reiterate what Mr. Horniak has said. I want to thank you for your investment into our community. Without your investment into your community, we would not have the things that we have here. We would not have the jobs that we have here. So thank you. And I hope that you continue to invest in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walnzak.
Mr. President.
Ms. Ackerman.
I want to thank you all for coming. I know that you very much are interested in what this council does regarding the OEDF and its funding. I want you all to know that we represent the taxpayers who are the bank for what the OEDF does. We are here for the taxpayers and for the accountability that they demand. We believe in economic development. In fact, I kind of, it's funny thinking back a few decades when Ackerman sold to Harmon for some of that warehouse. So we have quite a track record of supporting industry and supporting commerce and being active participants in business in this community. I don't like the disparaging comments made about myself, Mr. Salander, or anybody else on this council as being anti-business, anti-jobs. I think that's very unfair, given since 1982, I'm a very staunch conservative who believes in, having a robust economy. When it's the irony of being, having you all here, and it's wonderful, all of the beautiful things that you have done for the community. And that's why, we're hoping that, as some of you have alluded to, that you're on board with wanting every I dotted and T crossed when it comes to how you operate. And we have not cast a shadow on the OEDF. The paperwork speaks for itself. The numbers speak for themselves. The putting on of various properties for sale by owners who said they were not for sale, not just our own, but there have been other cases in the past. And that's just maybe, like you said, sloppy, and everybody makes mistakes. But I think we're all on the same page when we say we want to move forward, being able to present Oregon with a clean bill of health, give it the checkup, give the OEDF the checkup, prove to everybody that everything is kosher, everything's A+, and we all move forward. And we all look forward to the data center hopefully coming to our community, which ironically, it would have been a battery plant, and we would be talking about pollution right now instead of a data center. We want those jobs. We want that data center. So I just want everybody to know, I think it's very unfair. It's a two-way street to be disparaged as anti-business. I didn't get on council to shoot down jobs. We want growth. We want the development, but we want it to be responsible land use. And I think we can all work together. If you all that are here tonight, including, your treasurer, if you all are on board with open books, numbers, everything being addressed, the little nuances of something issued in December has different numbers than something put out in January. But taking that time to sit down and give us all that peace of mind and give us all that. We want to work with you. We want to promote everything you do as long as you're doing it all by the book. And I believe that overwhelmingly the majority of you are. But if there are discrepancies, let's not bury them. Let's address them. Let's show the outside world that we keep it neat and tidy here in Oregon. And I do thank you for coming out tonight. I really do. And I'm not the enemy. Mr. Salander is not the enemy. He believes in business and, having a really good quality of life here in Oregon. The confusion for me lies in, and you gave them over more than 3 minutes each, except for maybe 1 or 2. So I would ask for just that same courtesy. When there were some numbers that weren't lining up, when there was a director fired, we still don't know why. When you've been through 3 directors in less than 5 years, we need to talk about that. We need to find out, because that are our that director is paid for by our tax dollars. And to say that, we don't have an answer, and I'm hearing conflicting reports about why this young man, who is a member of our community, who was a graduate of USC, who it's discouraging to find out if someone's been ill-treated or wronged by an organization such as yours, the OEDF. So I would invite you all to be on board, and if you needed some house cleaning, you need to do it. That's on you. But for our dollars, for our 100,000 that comes over to you yearly, without even having the appropriate numbers given to the budget, there are things that are required per the agreement with the City of Oregon. Make sure those are timely. Make sure that everything's above board with all of your members, and it won't reflect poorly on you. But I do thank you for coming here, and I'm sorry it took this for us to see your faces here. So really, I appreciate seeing you all here, because sometimes things have to get worse to get better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
just like to address you guys all coming here, and I'll start by saying, some people say some things, but actions speak louder than words. Their actions may say something other than their words may say. I myself think you have been accountable to all the expenditures that you have made.
I understand that wasn't always the priority. The priority, just like when I called Stephanie Coleman to get that property in, well, I wanted it in 10 minutes, but I just settled for 48 hours, but that was pretty darn good. And so those were the priorities. The priorities were achieved. And when we did come into the finances, although they were late, all of our money was accounted for. To ask for an audit, first of all, we couldn't do it anyways. You'd have to choose to do that. But I think it's crazy. I do trust the numbers. I do believe our money has all been accounted for. We're good. Some of us up here are good. And I just want to speak that I am one of them. And I'm good and appreciate seeing you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's nothing further from council,
Mr. President.
Mr. Sandlander?
Thank you. I'll make it quick. But I just wanted to just take a moment, I want to thank you all for coming here as well. I know this is also your volunteer time, so thank you for taking that time to come out here with us today too. I appreciate your efforts, I really do. I appreciate the businesses that have come. I love Buffalo Rock. It's one of my favorite places. Love the dog park, love all those things. So I'm encouraged by our future, encouraged by the data center. Very excited about that. That's going to be huge to our city and to the schools. So thank you for that. You know, questions are good. It never hurts to have questions. I don't feel it ever hurts to ask questions when you have them. But I just want to let you know that I do appreciate you, and I truly do feel we're all on the same page. We just may have some different routes to get there, but I believe we are all on the same page. Absolutely, 100%. And I'm behind you also. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandlander. If there is nothing further. Yes, it's got to be, yes, you can. Go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
PJ Caphammer, 3646 Navarre. And I just wanted to say, I've done business with a lot of people in this room. I'm part of this community. And without a lot of these people in this room, there's not much of a community. A little story. 25 years ago, headstrong kid with a tattoo on the back of his head was starting a new business called Maumee Bay Turf Center. Couldn't get financing because they wanted to finance on our old companies. We were a new LLC. Another little younger whippersnapper comes in, Marty Sutter, Genoa Bank. 5 minutes he spent with me. We looked each other in the eyes. He said, "Will you bank with us?" I said, "You betcha. I'll never screw you. And you'll get your money, and I'll always bank with you." To this day, that holds true. Other banks have came looking for my business. Probably $100 million is pumped through Genoa Bank because of that commitment. That's what this is all about. These people are special. They are what makes the city special. I wouldn't even have a restaurant. Their employees are in there every day. They're in there every day. They are the core fabric of this community. And I want to tell you, thank you. You donate your time, 60, 70, 80 hours a week working. I know that feeling. Burn up, working with your people. And you still, when you got a couple minutes to yourself, you come out and help this city. That speaks volumes for the character that's back here. This is what makes the city special. The leaders in your city whose employees and themselves commit to making the city better every day. Thank you. I know a lot of people in this room. They're great people. They volunteer. And it sucks when you volunteer and somebody throws shade at you. But you know what? They're strong people. And winners get shade thrown at you. You guys are all winners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Caphammer.
I think you have a new member.
Anything further? If not, the members from the.
Mr.
Did you want to
President.
speak about this? Vicky, please name and address for the record.
Hi, Vicki Laurel, 3516 Fieldbrook Lane, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. I came here tonight prepared with a statement about accounting and the importance of being able to track money and being able to see where money is spent. I have a whole presentation here. I was going to teach you about accounting. I come from a family of accountants. And I thought, you know what? Everybody needs to know a little bit about accounting. And I think all the people behind me know a lot about accounting. I really do. You are important business owners. You know what it's like when the auditors come calling. Let me give you a little bit of experience from my end. I was responsible for a big budget with the schools. I was the national lunch school for the schools. I was the administrator for that program. And there's nothing worse than having a review and an audit from the federal government, okay? You're reviewed not only on where the money comes from, you're reviewed on all your procedures and to make sure that everything is in line. And right now I'm gonna say, shame on you and shame on the foundation for putting us here today. Because quite frankly, if everybody would have been doing their jobs concerning the money and being able to account for it and doing their jobs as far as getting the information that's requested per the ordinance and also keeping good books, we wouldn't be here questioning any of this. Our community cannot afford to lose anything that could be coming in. And for this to be going on, I think it's a shame because all it would have taken is a little bit of cooperation. The city asked for the books, and unfortunately, I guess the books weren't quite in place because there wasn't the detail. They still haven't provided the detail. And people want to know the basic concept is when you sell a piece of property for $1 and then somebody's out there saying that it was sold for $1.2 million and that money can't be accounted for. That's what puts everybody in a roar about what is happening to public dollars. I support this foundation. I came here to learn more about it, and I am happy that this foundation exists and it needs to continue to exist. But we also need to continue to play by the rules, and we need to follow what the procedures are across the board concerning the money. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, and I believe it was spoken to tonight, so thank you very much. To the Oregon Economic Development Partnership that we have, you guys are free to leave if you would like to now instead of staying for our regular business meeting. But first of all, I want to applaud you guys for what you did. Thank you.
See you, Marty. All right.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you all. See you, Marty. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Council, we'll get on with our business meeting here. The first item, or first, we need to add items 008 of 2025 through 0011 of 2025 to tonight's agenda. Can I seek a motion to add these items to the agenda?
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack. We have a motion by, I thought,
You're good.
I heard it from both, so I.
He wanted
I
to
just happened
third
be
it.
looking that way. So, council, we have a motion by Ms. Pauloff and a second by Mr. Wallensack. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, items 008 of 2025 through 011 of 2025 has been added to tonight's agenda. The first item on the agenda for this evening is item number 008 of 2025. And it's being presented by Chief Beegan,
Thank you, Mr.
the mayor
President.
and Chief Beegan, but we're going right.
I would just start by saying, of course, you see in the presentation today,
Right.
all of you are present, and Chief Egan might want to add anything, but I think pretty much most of it was said already.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chief.
Mr. President. And thank you, Mayor. Just to go over just a little bit, we spoke about it in depth in the Public Safety Committee meeting that we had. We believe that the flat camera systems and the system that they offer with the 90,000 plus cameras throughout the United States will be a great benefit to the city of Oregon. We believe that it will help with crime investigations and also to help deter crime. When people see these flat cameras as they're entering and exiting the community, they will reconsider, and hopefully that will deter crime. And lastly, just on the privacy issue, the flat cameras take photos of license plates, and those photos are on file for 30 days. Those photos, nothing is looked at unless there's an investigative purpose to that. So we're not monitoring who's coming in and out of the city. The only time that we would look through those records would be for investigative purposes, and we will have oversight to ensure that that's strictly what it's being used for. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Council,
Mr. President.
Mr. Drake.
Yeah, Chief Beegan, I remember the slideshow the guy presented earlier up here. Said there's no facial recognition. Is there an option for that, or just for whatever reason they don't do facial?
Mr. President, they do not use that just due to privacy concerns. And I don't think that their company itself plans on using any type of facial recognition technology. They're strictly for logging the license plates.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Horniak.
Just to restate, it was said during the Safety Committee meeting earlier, and I know I'm one that has spoken about this over the years as we've talked about different methods of enforcement and things in the area, but just to restate, this is not for traffic enforcement whatsoever. It is literally a recording service providing for Amber Alerts, things of that nature, but this is not a traffic enforcement system.
And Mr. President, yes, that is correct. There's no traffic enforcement. It just takes pictures of the license plates, and then we only look into those if there's a investigative purpose for that.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Any further questions, council? Hearing none, I will assign item 008 of 2025 as ordinance 008 of 2025 and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and chief of police to enter into an agreement and to issue a purchase order to Flock Group, Inc., 1170 Howell Mill Road, Suite 210, Atlanta, Georgia, for the purchase of 12 Flock Safety Falcon license plate recognition cameras to be used by the Oregon Police Division and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council?
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 008 of 2025 as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salander. Ms. Ross, we have a motion by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Salander. Ms. Ross, would you please take a roll call vote of council?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Mrs. Ackerman? Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wolensek?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 008 of 2025 does pass with a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. The next item on the agenda is number 009 of 2025. That is also presented by the mayor and Chief Beegan. Mayor?
Who wants to take that? Dick or
Yep, I'll take it.
Chief Egan?
Chief Beegan.
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. President. We're bringing forward this ordinance so we can enter into, or seeking approval to enter into an agreement and to accept a purchase order from Synovus Energy to provide traffic control services. Throughout the years, you guys have probably seen it in the past where our officers go out there when there's large shutdowns or retoolings of Synovus Energy, where our officers go out there and help the contractors to safely enter or cross the roadways, enter the roadways with their vehicles during times of shift turnarounds. Synovus Energy is planning a shutdown this year, so we're preparing the documentation so that way we can provide those services as we have in the past. Law Director Purpura did look over the agreement and made sure that it was up to date with what it needed to be, and we're ready to move forward with it.
Thank you, Chief Beegan. Council, are there any questions on item 009 of 2025? Hearing none, I will assign item 009 of 2025 as ordinance 009 of 2025 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and chief of police to enter into an agreement and to accept a purchase order from Synovus Energy to provide traffic control services through the Oregon Police Division under the terms listed on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 009 of 2025 as an
Thank you.
emergency measure.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salander. We have a motion by Ms. Pauloff, second by Mr. Salander. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll call vote of council?
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Salander,
Yes.
Mrs. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Horniak,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 009 of 2025 does pass with a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. The next item on the agenda is item number 010 of 2025, and it's presented by the mayor and Mr. Paul Roman. Mr. Roman, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is needed to enter into right-of-way easement agreements with 3 separate property owners for the Navarre Avenue Safety Improvement Program. The listing of the property owners, the type of agreements, and the easement values are listed in Exhibit A. You'll see it right on the first page there. And along with the easement descriptions are attached as well. The largest value here is with Kingston Court. That is where a traffic light is going in. It is a 1/4 acre warranty deed basically their drive will become public. And when you take these things, it includes improvements that are within it, curbing, pavement, and so on. They all have a value. Unfortunately, in the last year, they paved their drive, and that has a higher value. So obviously you have to pay for that. So that's why that number is a little bit higher. But everything else is going well with the acquisitioning process. We still are negotiating with 3 property owners, and we're hoping to bring those in the next couple weeks. If we're not unable to come to some agreement, we will start the eminent domain proceedings, which start out with 2 ordinances, and you'll see them in February, and we'll proceed through March. So, but hopefully everything else will go well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, are there any questions on items 010 of 2025? Hearing none, I will assign item 010 of 2025 as ordinance 010 of 2025 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into agreements with Larchmont East Apartments, Inc., 152 South Beach, Marco Island, Florida. Agree Limited Partnership, 1014 Vine Street, 7th floor, Tax Property, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Navarre RE LLC, 416 North Erie Street, 4th floor, Toledo, Ohio, for the acquisition of property or temporary easements, work agreements, and/or a portion of property for the LUC SR 2-21.072 Navarre Avenue Safety PID 118234 project and declaring emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council,
Mr. President.
was it Mr. Wallenzeck?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance number 10 of 2025 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenzeck.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. We have a motion by Mr. Wallenzeck, second by Mr. Drake. Ms. Rawson, will you please take a roll call vote of council?
Mr. Wallenzeck,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mrs. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Horniak,
Yes.
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 010 of 2025 does pass with a vote of 7 yeas and 0 nays. The next item on our agenda for consideration and passage is item number 011 of 2025. And it's presented by the mayor and our city administrator, Mr. Joe Major. Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this ordinance or this resolution would designate the city of Oregon as a America 250 community. And what that means is Congress established the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission, which is its purpose is to plan the 250th anniversary of our country. So on July 4th of 2026, this nation will be 250 years old. So they're in this process of planning different events. Passing this resolution would qualify us to, or at least allow us, make us eligible to apply for certain grants. And there is one that's due in a few days. So I have talked with, I know I brought up a few ideas at our last meeting, but I have talked with the members of the dog park, and it looks like that project is going to be the best fit for this. So, we want to be competitive with our grant applications and, try to get the biggest bang for our buck. So I'm working with Joan, so I'm going to draft the grant application, and she's going to review it, and hopefully we can get one in and get awarded. So anyways, that's in the short term, but in the long term, there are some other events in 2026 each month that, give us an opportunity to participate in nationally with everybody else. So that's all I have, and take any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Council. Hearing no questions, I will assign item 011 of 2025 as resolution 011 of 2025 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
A resolution of the City of Oregon, Lucas County, Ohio, supporting the Ohio Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial America 250 Ohio.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for passage of resolution number 11 of 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salander. We have a motion by Mr. Wallenczak, second by Mr. Salander. Ms. Ross, would you please take a roll call vote of council?
Mr. Wallenczak.
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Mrs. Ackerman.
Yes.
Mr. Drake.
Yes.
Mr. Horniak.
Yes.
Mrs. Pauloff.
yes,
Mr. Reeves.
Yes. Thank you. Resolution 011 of 2025 does pass with a vote of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That concludes all the agenda items for this evening. We do have a liquor permit trucks to consider this evening. As a reminder, council consideration for this, whether to check the box for a hearing or proceed without a formal hearing. Are there any questions in regard to the liquor permit trucks? Hearing none.
Mr. President.
Council, Mr. Drake.
Maybe Melissa would know. Melissa, is it for liquor, like 80 proof, or is it for like beer and wine? I couldn't read it no more. My phone died earlier.
80 proof has to be a liquor store, so it can't be that. Yeah. 21%.
Mr. President, Mr. Drake, I believe this is just for beer and wine. That was part of the ordinance that we had in front of council when they were transferring it into the city. So it's not.
It hasn't changed.
No, correct. It has
Okay,
not changed.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, do we have a motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paul.
with the information given, I move to instruct the clerk to mark the box that we do not seek a public hearing or a hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. We have a motion by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Horniak. Council, any objections? Hearing none, I request the clerk to check the box that states that we do not request a hearing for this liquor permit. Having all the items in the, having considered all the items on the agenda this evening, we will now move into the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, and council, you have received correspondence from the Fire and Rescue Department with 3 different personnel issues. And I will start with the first one and ask council's concurrence in accepting the resignation of Jared Rivera effective December 9th. Jared has chosen to follow a different career path, and so we wish to honor his wishes in accepting his December 9th, 2024 resignation.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's acceptance of the resignation of Jared Rivera effective December 9th, 2024 from the fire department.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Paula, and thank you, Mr. Salander. Mr. Mayor, council,
Are there any objections?
are there any objections? Mr. Mayor, council concurs with the resignation.
Okay, now on the appointments of, and I will start with Mr. Michael Halka of 2310 Taft Road in Oregon. And as I ask council's concurrence in the appointment to the part-time recruit in the fire department be placed at the hourly rate of $16.9950. And the effective startup date will be tomorrow, January 28th, 2025. And I'd ask council's concurrence in this appointment of Michael Halka.
Thank you, Mayor. Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's, appointment. Thank you. It wasn't in there.
Appointment to the part.
The mayor's appointment of Michael Halka as a part-time recruit for the fire department effective January 28th, 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Salander, for the second. We have a motion by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Salander. Any objections? Hearing none. Mr. Mayor, council concurs with the appointment.
Thank you, council. And next and the last thing I have here is ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Ryan Schaefer, 22216 Honeysuckle Lane, Curtis, Ohio, to the position of firefighter 2 paramedic. He'll be placed at step 1, hourly rate $27.7645, or an annually salary of $72,187.88. And the effective startup date will also be tomorrow, January 28th, 2025. And I ask once again, council's concurrence. Appointment, firefighter 2 paramedic Ryan Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of Ryan Schaefer as a firefighter 2 paramedic in the fire department starting January 28th, 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salander. We have a motion by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Salander. Council, any objections? Hearing none. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, council concurs with the appointment.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would conclude my report.
Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have one item, this has to do with the OEDF. I believe everybody that's requested it has received a copy of the financial reports that were provided. As far as I'm concerned, they've complied with the requirements that were in the contract, and if the invoice comes across my desk, I will be approving it. So it's all here, that whatever is needed to approve of that, I believe we have that, and if that comes across, that'll, I'm glad Mary stayed here and everybody else didn't get to hear it, but if usually the OEDF submits an invoice, so that's once we get the invoice, that's where I'm at. Yep. Okay. And then I know in the contract, this is an annual renewal. So in the renewal, and I rewrote this, so you'll have to forgive me, but I put a date in here of January 30th for certain items. Now that was kind of arbitrary on my part, but when I met with the former director and president at the time, they said that would work. But I do realize that is a very difficult timeline to provide a financial report for the prior years. So
Please.
Again, Mary Gregory.
Thank you.
Oregon Economic Development. So, and yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the reasons I didn't send the invoices because I wanted to chat with you about the next invoice. But so we're a nonprofit, a 501c6, and we have CPA firm that does our books naturally. But typically CPA firms save their nonprofit work for the times in between profit work when, you know, when they have a lull. Right now and until August, they're busy. So we typically don't get our financials done in our 990 until Q3 or Q4 of the year. There's usually like a little bit of a period before their October tax returns have to be done for some of their business partners. I remember there's a lady in here who talked about her accounting role. You probably realize that, or you probably remember that from your experience. Nonprofit work does fall to the back burner. So going forward, we're probably going to send or ask for a new contract whereby we can provide you with financials, but we can't give you our compilation until probably the close of the following year. For example, you got 2024 or 2023's financial compilation at the end of 2024. That's because it's delayed. Right now, our 2024 financials are already extended till May. They're probably going to be extended again because our CPA is very busy. There's a shortage of good accountants around, by the way. So anyway, just keep that in mind, everybody. We're doing the best we can with very limited budget. You asked also why we have turnover. It's a very low paying position that demands a high level of knowledge and skill set. So it's a hard position to fill. But anyway, thank you, everybody.
Mary, just before you leave, I was just going to say, many of you don't realize what we went through with Steve Irwin, who was your CPA, that Steve was going on vacation. He went back to work at night, worked through a vacation day just to get us stuff. So, and poor Nick was going crazy during the time.
Oh,
And,
poor Nick.
and
Yeah.
he really, Nick hung in there. So
For
for
sure.
Nick and Steve, they battled a lot to get here.
Yes.
But we got to the end that we knew we'd get to.
Mhm.
It's just, like I said,
Well,
it wasn't
you
always a
know,
priority.
And we appreciate actually working with the city. I mean, you guys did a great job of hanging in there with us because you have to remember, Alec left for an amazing career opportunity. He was very good. He did a terrific job. The books under Alec were very good. And then I came on board for 3 months while we looked for a new person to take Alec's place. We finally, you know, I had to learn this job from, you know, I didn't know what I was doing initially. So you guys had to bear with me while I tried to learn how everything was being done. Then we hired a gentleman who was to do this job. It was not something that he was able to do, so we had to let him go. Or maybe he could do it. I'm just saying it just did not work out. So I had to come back. Now I have to relearn everything. And so part of the delay is my fault because I had to learn how to do all these things. But going forward, well, we are interviewing for somebody, but going forward, we are not going to be able to get you the financial statements as soon as you like, again, because we operate with a professional CPA who has priorities, profit work, way ahead of our nonprofit work.
One other thing I'd like to add is that, you know, and when you get the executive board, and it's kind of like a short straw deal. The people who end up with the short straw end up on the executive board
That
members.
is very true. I have begged them not to abandon me.
Yeah.
Yes. They've all gotten short
Mrs.
straws.
Gregory,
Thank
may,
you.
may I ask you a question?
Yes.
So the firm that's been doing all of your 990s and all of your tax work, they've been doing that pro bono then?
No, they just give us a discounted rate because we're a nonprofit.
Okay, thank you. I was curious, so 22 and 23, we can talk about the discrepancies in that, if you'd like to meet up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Purpura.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Mr. Roman.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Horniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, again, I just thank all the members from the OEDF for being here. The investors not only in that organization, but in our community. It's important work and necessary work. So we appreciate that and appreciate you coming here to just kind of have a chat. Secondly, council members, as I mentioned before, I asked Ms. Rawson just to share with you the scheduling for the OEDF. Also gives a little status information towards the top part of that. Talks about their governance and their election of governance. It also talks about how their board members or the board of trustees are appointed, who's welcome and able to have members onto that, and then gives their meeting schedule for the year and the meeting on the 21st of February, which is at Bay Park Hospital. They'll talk through their governance. They'll talk through 2024 and their previews for 2025. And again, I thank those members of the community because for those of us that may have sat on volunteer boards before, it is a never ending and unthanked task. And we do appreciate everybody's effort to help our community and our residents. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Ms. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I had the first of the year Safety Committee meeting, and I really want to thank the chiefs. It was a lot of information. It was really well put together. It was very detailed, and I really appreciate all the hard work and fact finding that you go through to keep all those stats together. And really thank you for keeping Oregon safe. You're so invaluable to the city. So thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Ms. Ackerman.
Mr. President, from my committee, I was out of town when the natural gas leak occurred. Could somebody, I was hoping somebody would cover it and just so the public kind of reassure the public of what took place. Was it, I only saw the little news clips. So was it the Oregon Clean Energy? Was it the Nexus pipeline that leaked, or was it the clean energy plant that had the leak? Because you know how the news is, like, I just don't know. I want to hear it from you guys. Like what, so we can tell, just assure the public there's no problems.
I can start, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr. Mays.
Ackerman. My understanding is it happened at the clean energy plant. I don't know if it was on the right-of-way side or if it was on their side, on the private side, but it was pretty intense there for about an hour and a half, and real touch and go. I mean, it sounded like a jet engine constantly running, and because it was so much pressure from the gas, and the odors did go across about to the city limits.
But not a danger
with the
to
wind
anyone?
direction. No, I don't believe the air monitoring anything was of any level that was that could be read. That was a non-detect, as far as I know. So I don't know if anything was.
Mr. President,
least-
Mrs. Ackerman, we did have, it was a 24-inch gas line that did rupture with a divider disc, is what I'm being told. It was, I'm not 100% sure if it was Oregon Clean Energy, but I believe it was on the Nexus pipeline. They worked together out there on the scene to be able to get it. We were attempting to try to get some information out publicly as soon as we possibly could. But the turnaround for this entire incident was probably, like you said, with around an hour time frame. The way that we were fortunate with the wind direction when by the time that we arrived on scene. So what happened is the way that we received the call was an employee working at Synovus. They had heard it. So Oregon Clean Energy sits, a little bit off site from where that leak actually happened. They called it in. So we were just called for the area for a potential of a gas leak. And then when our crews arrived on scene, it was this loud, very loud leak to try to identify. Luckily, Nexus team was in close proximity. Did not take them long to get on scene. But the way that wind was going was taking us in a direction where the air monitoring, we initially sent crews downwind to be able to see where and how impactful that was, because we knew that there was going to be maybe a scent of natural gas in the Bayshore area, and really concerned of the school in that area down there as well. We did not have any readings that were of any sort of nature. to require any sort of evacuation. But what we were trying to figure out in the meantime, working with our Lucas County EMA, and we were getting ready to put out the text on the mass alert system. But the mass alert system's only utilized in the event that an action needs to be taken. So we tried to put something out on our Facebook page as soon as possible. We did have some conversation internally about some things I think we should clean up for that. With that being said, and the reason why I say to clean up would be, let's be a little bit more direct if we know what the product is, rather than having, the stating like a hazard. I think does set off a general alarm in your own layperson mind. Unless you just said, hey, it's natural gas. But if we could say, hey, it's natural gas, but there's no evacuation. But I will say that all these events did happen very quickly, and that's why there wasn't any mass notification that went out. But it would be in the event that there would needed to be an evacuation, or there was a threat to the direct individuals within that part, we would have then definitely put that in that mass notification in that geographed area. So, but I will say that I'm not sure if that was a temporary fix or a permanent fix. And I would imagine that they would be looking at it. We are working on scheduling a post-incident meeting with them to find out some more details on how that happened or why that would happen. And if there's anything that we could have done anything different or vice versa. So.
Okay, it sounds like you guys did everything you're supposed to do. Wasn't on, anything you guys did or didn't do. So, but thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Are we gonna have a tree when I know, I'll put out something about the tree commission meeting to invite additional citizens that want to be involved. And there's going to be an environmental committee meeting on February 3rd at 6 p.m. KSC, Ms. Rawson asked me for topics. I was like, miscellaneous topics. And well, the government doesn't like the term miscellaneous. They want specific. So I will hone that down and we will get an announcement out. I'll narrow it down so it fits in hopefully before we start our 7 p.m. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman. Mr. Salander.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing from my standing committee, just real quick on that incident. Thank you. Great job. Thank you for that. One other thing, I just want to kind of give a quick shout out also to, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday. We had a citizen that had a water, their meter had burst or pipe had burst, and they were kind of panicky because they called non-emergency and they got sent to Gage Toledo, set on a half an hour hold there, and then we're told they should call non-emergency. So, so they're in the panic. They didn't know what to do, so they reached out to me, and I wasn't really sure what to do either, honestly. And so I reached out to Keith Henninger and to Paul Roman, and within probably 15 minutes, and Mary Wolf had got in touch with the citizen as well, and got it all taken care of. So they were extremely appreciative of that. So thank you guys, and thank you, Mary Wolf, and the whoever was, I don't know who was that went out there, but thank you to them. It's very, very much appreciated, and that's what makes our city great right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandlin.
Also the businesses, don't get me wrong. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sandlin. Mr. Drake.
I have no report from my committee. The only thing I'd like to bring up, I know we've talked about this probably for at least a good year, if not a little longer, but that in and out parking lot, I mean, it's like walking on the moon. There's craters, they're getting worse. I see people in wheelchairs playing leapfrog, trying to get around them. And I know, Joel, you had looked into it a while ago, but it is absolutely pathetic.
Mr. Mazer?
Mr. Drake, may I ask, which one's the in and out?
Where that Mexican restaurant and the old In and Out.
The Holiday Inn.
Yeah, okay,
Holiday
yes.
Inn.
So I think I sent an update on that. Thank you for that. They are planning to repave that in the spring or summer. That one in particular, because they are renovating the Holiday Inn and they are going to renovate I believe it's a Hampton Inn. Is that correct? I'm trying to think.
Comfort Inn?
Well, there's the Holiday Inn, and then there's another one that they're renovating. Yeah, that one, yep.
Oh, good.
On Harbor. I believe they own them both.
they
That's,
did- they
that's,
bought
that's, the Yusuf's. Yeah, Martin. Yeah. So I believe they own them both, so I think they're renovating them both, and when they're done with the renovations, they're going to repave, and I believe they're planning on selling one of the outlots along Navarre.
I know I've talked to a couple of the businesses there, the pizza place and the In-N-Out Mart, and, you know, they just rent from the facilities. But it's just, you know, I just told them, I said, there's no way that helps your business. So
Right.
I'm sure they are angry about it, but what are you gonna do?
And I know about it too. I hear from them, and I've driven it myself and had that that's why I've known Martin for many, many years, from the Toledo days. And he owns properties in Toledo and had some investments there, but we sat down, we actually went to the hotel itself, and I sat down with him, and he assured me that he gave me the site plan. It's sitting on my desk right now, that this was gonna get repaved in 2025.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. I have nothing from my standing committee, but I need to set a public hearing for Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 7 PM for two renewal agricultural district applications. The first agricultural district renewal application is for William E. and Donna S. Nelson, trustees, for 10 acres located at 5202 Cedar Point Road, 25 acres located at 5252 Cedar Point Road, 38.65 acres located at 7025 Navarre Avenue, and 17.38 acres located at 6825 Seaman Road. Excuse me. The second agricultural district renewal application is for James L. and Christine L. Beeler for 10 acres located at 4745 Seaman Road, 14.741 acres located at 4419 Seaman Road, 18.305 acres located at 237 South Stadium Road, and 19.269 acres located at 350 South Stadium Road. Those will be set for Monday, the 10th. With that, with no further business before council, I seek a motion to adjourn. So, thank you, Mr. Horniak. Ms. Pauloff. This meeting is adjourned.